It was during the pandemic. I was booked to play Luck Reunion the week that the world shut down. And I had been booked. I was over the moon, like bucket list. So it's not just any festival. It's quite a small, exclusive festival, but it's held every year on Willie Nelson's ranch in Luck, Texas. So you're in his backyard. You're walking through the movie set of Red-Headed Stranger. All the buildings are standing there. You're walking through a piece of history and his home. And so it's more than just a gig, you know? But even if I'd just been booked on a gig, like with him on the bill, that would have been a thrill. So this was like, I was fizzing. And then when the world shut down, I was absolutely devastated. And Matt Beiser, who runs the festival, got in touch and said, we're moving the festival online. We're gonna have each person do like a couple songs. We'd like you guys to do one. And so I beamed in, just me and my guitar player, from a record shop in New Zealand, in Auckland. And I remember being wedged in like between Lucinda Williams and like Paul Simon and me. And I'm like, which never would have happened in real life, you know? It's like, this virtual world is amazing. And unbeknownst to me, Willie and Annie, his wife Annie, and their family were all watching the whole thing because it's all live streamed. There's nothing else to do. And, you know, the reality is if I'd gone there physically and played, I would have been on at like 11 a.m., you know, 12 hours before Willie was on stage, you know? He's not gonna come out during the daytime. He's like a vampire. He only comes out at night. True headliner, you know? I only see darkness. And so the fact that it did get moved online and they did see me play, and unbeknownst to me at the time, Matt told me this later. He said, as soon as you started your set, my phone started going crazy, and it was Annie going, who the hell is this? Oh my God, he loves her, we love her. And she immediately then started following me on Twitter. And I didn't know who she was. I just thought she was this lovely new fan, and I'd gotten a whole bunch of new fans like from doing this live stream. And so we interacted for probably a good 2 months before she then followed my brother, and he checked who it was that was following him. I didn't. And he said, do you realize who it is you're talking to, that Annie? And I'm like, no. And he's like, that's Willie's wife. And I kind of quickly mentally went through like, what have I said to her? So that's kind of how the connection was made. And it would have been a year and a half or 2 years later after she ended up sending me her phone number and saying, let's text, you know, you don't need to just talk to me on Twitter. And so we were texting regularly, and it was kind of this beautiful gift, this little silver lining in and out of lockdowns and a pandemic and the whole world being in a bit of misery at the time. Having this little gift of her friendship was really special. And I went to record my new album after, you know, time had passed, and went into the studio. And I'd written this duet with a friend, Delaney Davidson, who had recently lost his father. I had recently lost my father, and we were talking about that, as you do when you get together and write songs and you just pull your heart out, put it on the table. And when it came to recording the song, it was a duet. And so I was singing the first verse, and I thought it was supposed to be my dad singing the second verse. And I'm like, who on earth could possibly fill the shoes of my dad, you know? And my brother jokingly said, oh, why don't you ask your new best friend, Willie Nelson, you know? And I did that. I laughed. And then I went, what if, like I just didn't even think of the possibility. But then it was planted in my head, and I'm like, oh no, that's aiming too high. That's shooting too high. And I ended up, like, it took me probably 3 months to get up the courage to even broach it with Annie, because I was very aware of not wanting to affect our friendship and not want to ruin that. And I'm sure she gets it all day, every day. And so it kind of came up in conversation. She was talking about him doing a duet with a friend of theirs who's not famous or anything. And I'm like, it's now or never. Like, she's kind of segued this request. And I said, well, actually, I was wondering, but I said, before I ask, like, I want you to know, like, if it's a no and if it's going to affect our friendship anyway, I want you, like, this is like Mission Impossible. This will self-destruct, and you don't have to respond, and you don't have to even pretend you saw this text. Like, I'd rather keep our friendship intact than wreck it with this kind of a request. And she just laughed. She's like, just send it. It's fine. And she said, of course, it's up to him. Like, he can see if he hears himself in it. So I ended up sending it through, and he said that he loved it. He said it reminds him of Patsy and Marty. And I'm like, that's not a compliment at all, coming from the man who wrote Patsy's biggest hit and knew her. So yeah, that was kind of the beginning, but I still obviously didn't meet him in person for probably another year, because our borders were closed over in New Zealand, and the world was still kind of, navigating ourselves through this pandemic. And so he sent his vocal and trigger virtually sent through and added it to the track. And oh my God, I remember that day, like it coming through. And I was out for a walk, and Annie texted me that it was coming through, and I raced home, and my husband just happened to be home, and we sat on the couch and listened to it on the good speakers. And both of us just were crying, just weeping while we listened to it. It's just still so surreal to me, hearing our voices together. And yeah, then it even became more special when the first time I actually clapped eyes on him, like in real life, I flew the week our borders opened, was Luck Reunion 2 years later. They were having it finally, they were back, and our border opened that week. And I was on that plane like a shot. We got to the ranch the day before, and Annie texted, and she said, he wants you to come up to the house and just have a little run through before tomorrow. And I'm like, no big deal. I'm like, okay, cool, trying to be cool. And me and my brother were just like, I could hear him like breathing. And I'm like, stop it, you're making me nervous. And he's like, you're doing the same thing. And we were just like having to wait like 2 hours until we went up to the house. And we walked into the living room, and he was sitting at the kitchen, just at the counter, and he hopped down from his stool, and he had like his t-shirt tucked into his jog pants. He was comfy. He's like a granddad, I'm like, he's adorable. And there's nothing intimidating about him at all, like when the persona and the fame and the iconic, I guess, mantle that he wears and that he carries or precedes him, I guess, because then when you actually are in a room with him, he is the most non-celebrity celebrity that you'll ever meet. He's just such a real person, and disarming. So disarming, so humble, just real, good real people, And then we all went and sat down in the living room and got out the guitars, and it's still wild to me. And we sang the song together, and like hearing our voices in a room like this, like just two voices, not through a mic, nothing. It's just, wow, And he was playing, and I sang my verse, then we sang the chorus together. And Annie warned me before we started, she goes, I'm just giving the disclaimer. Roseanne Cash says that giving birth was easier than singing harmony with Willie Nelson. I'm like, okay, no pressure. And but it was so beautiful. He dances around you, and Yeah, as long as you don't try to follow. It's like just you dance your dance and he will just dance around you. He got to his verse and he was singing, and then he stopped after that. He sang a line and then he stopped, and I'm like, uh-oh, and he goes, "That's a good line right there." And then he carried on, and I'm like, no one can talk to me ever again. Ever again. Like, if you don't like my music, that's okay. Willie Nelson does. All other opinions are closed.
Oh, yeah.
Taking no others.
Hell
yeah.
When did the tour come about?
The tour, the Outlaw Festival's been like one of those dream gigs that, I see roll out every year and go, oh, I wish I was on this gig, and a number of things. I have new management, Sam Seifert, who also manages Asleep at the Wheel, and Willie Carlisle and Brennan Lee, a whole bunch of great artists. He took me on his management, and then I ended up getting this show. Again, it was like through Willie. It wasn't him that made it happen. It was the man who was booking or producing a PBS special at the Ryman of the music of Patsy Cline, and it was an all-star lineup. Winona and Ashley McBride and Crystal Gale and Pat Benatar and Kristen Chenoweth and me. And just kind of every country star you can think of singing the music of Patsy. And the man who produced that had seen me perform with Willie, and he reached out and said, "I'd love for you to be part of this lineup." And I said to Sam, I'm like, is this a mistake? He's got the wrong Tami? Like, does he know? Are you sure this is not a scam? Like people who go, Oprah wants you to be on her podcast. I'm like, this is not real. And Sam's like, no, I've checked it all out. It looks legit. And so booked my flights and did that show. And in the audience that night were CAA, who were immediately rang the next day and said they wanted to take me on as my agent, and having those little like connections that all kind of start to pop off. It's like a domino effect, and so having them on board, and then they have artists that are on the Outlaw Fest, and that's kind of how it wasn't Willie kind of putting in the good word. It was through all these other channels, but it's like this portal. I remember James Taylor saying, in your life, there are these moments that are like these portals. And he said, for me, it was the Beatles who, I was on one side of this curtain and they were on the other. This whole other life and this whole other world was on the side of the curtain with the Beatles. And they like reached through and pulled me through this portal, and it just completely brought me through to this whole other world. And that is most definitely what Willie has done for me in just agreeing to sing with me. It has it's his stamp of approval, and it has been life-changing, absolutely life-changing.
Was last night an outdoor show? Mm-hmm. It was 95 degrees yesterday, probably about showtime. It's hard enough for me or you, I guess, to get up and do that, but that's amazing that they're still out there in that heat doing it.
I know, 95 degrees in Nashville, and we're playing outside, and that is some serious heat. And, Bob Dylan and Willie are not young men. And yeah, there's definitely a concern there. But they do have, their production, they do have a massive kind of air conditioning like this huge tube that like just blows air conditioning on the stage, and it does make a massive difference. And it helps that those guys, you know, they're the headliners, so they're going on when the sun's gone down, so that helps as well.
Was that air conditioning going when you played?
You know, it wasn't supposed to be, but Alex, who is Willie's stage manager, I did a run with Willie back in April, and his whole crew, I'm just in love with them all. They're just beautiful people. You know, like the artist sets the tone, and it just filters right down to everyone. And so many of those people have been with him for decades, which is a testament to him and his character. That he's so loyal and keeps his people, and they love him, they adore him, you know. So Alex was the stage manager, and he said to me when I said, I'll see you again in June, and he said, well, just so you know, like it's not, we take care of Willie's set, but it'll be a different production crew because, you know, it's the Outlaw Fest, so it's multiple bands and all that. And so when it came to even sound check, we were, oh my God, we were dying. It was so hot, 95. And I've just flown in from a New Zealand winter. So that was like not acclimatized. I'm like, y'all are trying to kill me. And you know, this Canadian DNA is not built for this. Like, what are you doing to me, woman? Get me out of here. And so we started sound check. And I had like my little handheld fan, and I was like, maybe I could get some duct tape and like tape it to my mic stand, and maybe that'll help. And Alex said to the guys on the crew, he's like, she gets the AC. and they set it all up, and I'm like, I came off that stage still sweating, still like sheets of sweat pouring off of me. But I walked up to him and I gave him a big kiss on the cheek. I'm like, I love you. You are my hero. He's like, you get it every night. You tell the crew, if I'm not around, you get that every night. I'm like,
are these all outdoor shows?
They're all outdoor shows.
Tomorrow in Memphis?
Memphis, Oklahoma, Texas. I'm like, Texas in July. I suspect that, yeah, you know, I was all excited about the festival, obviously, and getting added on the lineup. And then I'm like, are they actually trying to kill me? Kill me with kindness? Yeah.
Well, have you had any interaction with Bob Dylan?
Well, I've only done the one show last night. And from friends of mine who have been on tour with Bob before, I have zero expectation of getting to meet Bob. I know he's very private and quite reclusive. He kind of has everything backstage shut down, so no one, and I mean no one, is allowed to stand side stage or be backstage when he's performing. Even, you know, there's no exception. This is so, I just sound like such a big jerk when I say this, but I got to hang out with Sheryl Crow last night backstage. She's on the tour later on, like in August, but she was just there last night because she lives in Nashville. And I was, oh my God, my heart, like I have loved her my whole life, and over the moon to get to spend time with her. And we were chatting, and then she said, I'm gonna go and watch Bob's side stage. And I kind of went, oh, I don't think I can. And she's like, no, come. And so we like walked up, and sure enough, there was a security guy. He's like, nope, sorry, nobody. And I'm like, this is Sheryl Crow. Like, she's Bob's friend. They've worked together. They've sung together, you know, all these things. But it's like, So she's like, okay, well, let's go out front. And so we went out into the audience and went out and sat in one of the boxes. And you know, this was my first time seeing Bob Dylan. And I've peaked, because I'm like, it's one thing to see Bob Dylan for the first time. It's another to see Bob Dylan for the first time with Sheryl Crow. I'm like, I'm never gonna get better company than this. Like, it's all downhill from here. Yeah.